Okay, Randy Miller again, Your American Sheriffs. Thank you for joining me in my video series. I had to take 3-4 days off because I had came down with something, and didn't take me down real bad because I invited a friend of mine. You might have heard of him. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm sure he'll be a friend of yours. His name is Ivan. Let's call him Ivan. Last name Mecton. And with his visitations, I recovered much quicker than I think I would have. So I suggest you all get that, make friends with him as well. I dropped a paper. Hold on just a second. Okay. I wanted to do a video today regarding just how far down the rabbit hole of despotic government we've become, to prove that they just don't care a lick about the American people like they're supposed to, like they need to, and like they were designed for. Remember the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, second paragraph. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights that can't be taken from you, legislated away, or given away because they cannot, they don't belong to anybody but you as an individual because they're God-granted rights. Government cannot create an emergency and suspend those rights because their emergency powers that they imagine for themselves are so invaluable that your rights are secondary in a consideration. That's complete BS as well. So I just want to point out two things for you regarding the attitude of the presidents and the attitude of the legislative branch that makes laws for us. I'm going to share my screen with you, so I'm hoping that it works out well. But remember, we had during, I want to share this with you. The Department of Health and Human Services, an unconstitutional organization created by the legislature whenever they did that, creating more power and authority over you and the states, which they don't have. But to end this, just to demonstrate how they don't really care about the American people at all, it's about power and control. Let's just look at what they believe they have for themselves here. I'm sharing my screen. Okay, this is this document. You can find it online, Federal Register. I'll put it in my notes below. But it's a Notice of Declaration under Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, the PrEP Act, for countermeasures against Marburg virus and or Marburg disease. But they utilize this in November 25th, 2020, after they declared their illegal state of emergency for the coronavirus. So what is this supplementary information for? Let's go back to the summary. The Secretary is issuing this declaration pursuant to Section 319F-3 of the Public Health Service Act to provide limited immunity for activities related to countermeasures against Marburg virus and or Marburg disease. So they instituted this policy to be included in the COVID protocol that says a Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act authorizes the Secretary of Health and Human Services to issue a declaration to provide liability, immunity, or to certain individuals and entities, covered persons, against any claim of loss caused by, arising out of, relating to, or resulting from the manufacture, distribution, administration, or use of medical countermeasures, covered countermeasures, except for claims involving willful misconduct. Well, this is where they get their CDC protocol, where they admitted COVID cases and got paid from the very admission to the murder and execution of the individual patient at the end of their so-called protocol treatment. Immunity from prosecution is what they say. So you need to read this document. It's garbage. There's no way they can provide immunity for themselves for their misdeeds and violations of human rights. But they did. And then So the legislature clearly has no desire to look out for the best interest of the people. This is just total crap. Now let's look at the presidencies. Here's one that I want to show you exactly what it is about. I'm going to have to unplug my microphone because, like I said, I'm not an expert, and it interferes with the audio of the video that's being played. So hold on.
All right, Mr. Vice President, have you? You're running for president. You are distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Drive around. There's not one city that's gotten better in the United States.
Right.
And it's visible. Our economy has degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased. And yet, your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern. Tucker, I've heard that routine from you before, but that's not my concern. I'm running for president of the United States because...
Sorry, Mr. Vice President, have you...
Okay. As you can see, the legislature, by giving immunity to people to violate the civil rights and civil liberties of the citizens they're supposed to protect, is non-existent because they grant immunity to people who follow their orders, just like they did during the Nazi concentration camps. And now we demonstrate that Mike Pence, who is running for president, openly admits the American concerns and the American needs and the needs of the American people are not his concern. So we have to wake up what the Constitution is all about. We created the federal government to do specific things for us as a states. The president is very limited in the functions and operations that he can do under Article 2, Section 2. There's nothing there that grants them any disregard or authority to disregard any of the requirements that they have, the duties under that section. And their duties are not including anything over the people or the states. There's no executive power over the states or the people from the United States president, just like there's no executive power over the people by the governor in the states. The people are not dictated to. We are not subservient to government. This is our government, and we have to wake up because the next threat that's coming is the next planned demic from the World Health Organization, which is nothing more than a club. They're a club of oligarchs, of corporations and rich people that sit around and ponder how they can expand their influence and control over the rest of the world for domination. The United States has no authority to make an agreement or a pact with this group because they're not a sovereign. The only authority the president has is to make treaties with foreign nations. That's a sovereign to sovereign. We cannot make a treaty with this group of moronic, narcissistic psychopaths wanting to control the rest of the world through their pharmaceutical brothership that they have with these psychopaths in the pharmaceutical industry, any more than we can have a treaty made with the World Economic Forum, any more than we can have a treaty made with the United Nations. They're not a sovereign. They're a collective conglomeration of representatives from other states or other foreign nations that get together and come up with their ideas of how they can control through agreements the rest of the world. And the United Nations, I think, needs to be dissolved. The World Economic Forum needs to be arrested and locked up for their psychopathic ideology that they want to implement and control human population. The World Economic Forum, same thing. Lock them up. They need to be accountable for the destructive activities that they implement on the rest of the world. And guess what? Our own country and our legislators and our representatives and our presidents that believe they need to continue the relationship with these organizations need to be considered for accountability in their actions as well, because there's no authority for any of them to enter into any agreement with these psychopathic organizations and bind the American people to restrictions, obligations, and all the mandates that they come down with and implement them on us. We aren't governed by these idiots. We're governed under a constitution that we agreed to and established, limiting the power of the federal government, reserving the powers to the states respectively, or the people, the 10th Amendment. Those powers not delegated to the federal government nor restricted under the Constitution to the states are reserved to the states respectively, or the people. It always comes back to the people. We have to stand up and say, enough. Our state legislators must stand up and exercise the authorities that they have, that they refuse to exercise because they themselves don't want accountability. And that includes exercising the states' rights and states' authorities over our borders, over our economic freedom. We need to have state banks and get away from the Federal Reserve, which is unconstitutional. The first Federal Reserve Act was implemented, I believe, in 1812, and it was vetoed. The extension was vetoed by Andrew Jackson, President Jackson, in 1832 because it was unconstitutional. I encourage you to read his veto message on the central bank in 1832. It explains everything that's going on. But the state legislators have got to and must start standing up for the people that they are supposed to represent. Digital currency, that's bullshit. Sorry for the language, but I'm sick and tired of this nonsense. It is unconstitutional. The Federal Reserve has no economic responsibility, liability, or accountability for anything that they do. And they are an unconstitutional organization. Our economic liberty is in the hands of the people through their states. There's no authority for banking any way whatsoever under the Constitution. It is not commerce. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, it says Congress shall regulate commerce between foreign nations and among the several states. Among the several states means how we trade with each other. The Constitution was designed to allow the independent sovereign nations, there's 50 of us, to live in harmony so we don't fight among ourselves. That authority for regulation of commerce is to make sure that each state treats one another fairly in the trade and exchange of services or support of, in exchange of the products that we produce within each of our own states or sovereign nations, to make sure we're not being unfair in our trade with other nations. That is done equally. There's no unfair, we can't place tariffs from one state to another. That's regulated by commerce. So things like that, they cannot dictate to the state what you produce, how you produce it, when you produce it, and how much you produce. That is completely unconstitutional. I think it was Justice Thomas. I like him. He's very good. He said that he made a comparison in one of the cases of when they were evaluating commerce. He said, we have to get back to the original intent of the Commerce Clause. He said, we have no further, I don't know if it's the same case or another one that I read, but he said, we have no further right to dictate to the states what they produce any more than we can tell France that you can't produce red grapes because Italy's producing red grapes. You can only produce white grapes and make white wine. We can't dictate to them any more than we can dictate to the states. It says regulate commerce among the states, how we trade with each other. Our banks need to be created within the states. What is our currency? Our legal currency is gold and silver. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5. Congress shall coin money, determine the value thereof, and the value of foreign coin, and develop a system of weights and measures. Isn't that interesting? How they said they put weights and measures in the same clause as they are saying Congress shall coin money. That's because the currency we have must be standardized throughout this country, that we will use the same currency and have the same value when we trade among ourselves. And then if that's gold and silver, coin money, gold and silver. And then if you look at the U.S. Constitution under prohibitions of the states, Article 1, Section 10, I think is Clause 1, part of that clause, there's several things in there, but it says, and the states shall pay their debts in nothing but gold and silver. That's our legal currency. You cannot outlaw it. So in 1931 or 32, whatever it was, when they violated the Constitution and outlawed, told you had to turn your gold in, that was unconstitutional. That was a ripoff of the American people. They bought it forced you to turn it in, those that did, at a low price, and then they doubled it, nearly almost, $15 an ounce, I think, more, after it was all taken in to boost the power of the dollar. The state legislators need to get out and do their job, and the people need to put their feet to the fire. And the only way you can do that is by learning your constitutions. It's only 4,543 words. It takes 30 minutes to read. Everybody should read it no less than 2 times a week. It's not that hard. And then if you need any more information, please review the Federalist Papers. I don't think I have that link up anymore. I don't. But I wanted to show you, you can go to the Avalon Project, which is the Yale Law School. It's an excellent resource of documents, historical documents. They got the Federalist Papers in there, the Magna Carta, the French rights of man, lots of documents, a lot of history there. So please take some time. We're supposed to be patriots, but we don't do enough to be good patriots. And that is learning the laws that govern government. We can't make a good government, enforce our government, if we don't know their restrictions and their duties. So please let's all help out and learn the Constitution, leave questions, comments, find other resources for the Constitution, and please go to Your American Sheriffs. I could use the help. Go there, give us some love. It's youramericansheriffs.us. That's sheriffs, that's plural. And make a donation, see what we're all about, and let's start working with our sheriffs. I'm working on a project now to bring as many sheriffs as possible in to start addressing the major concerns we're going to have in our communities with Venezuelan gangs and other gangs, the numerous identified Islamic terrorists that the federal government acknowledges are here but doing nothing about. We need to do it as a community, and I need your help and support to do that. And I'll need your help when the time comes very soon to help spread the word, and let's support our good sheriffs doing something and acknowledging the role that the important role that they're going to play in the defense of our communities. So I'm Randy Miller. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.